Welcome to Conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue heard exclusively on malcolmpresents.com, which is a internet platform featuring many shows, which Conversations with Deborah is one of my favorite.
Oh,
I won't tell my other people about that.
well, you got some really great guests on, Malcolm. So thank you.
And this is Malcolm Berman, and my co-host is Deborah Manning, who's an expert on everything.
Oh, stop it. I'm Deborah Manning, and I'm a former native Californian. Actually, I'm a native Californian, not a former, but I'm a former resident of California. Moved to, of all places, South Carolina,
South Carolina.
Greenville, South Carolina, 6 years ago. Used to be a news reporter, still have that in my blood. So one of the reasons that Malcolm and I do this program is that while I may be an independent voter, I go more conservative, and Malcolm is a little bit more liberal, but there is a lot of common ground that we do find.
I go
And
more revolutionary.
well, we don't. The funny thing about it is you wouldn't know there was any common ground if you looked at the news media, for crying out loud. And I'm talking about the CNNs, the MSNBCs, and even the Foxes, the Fox News. You wouldn't find any real common ground, and that's ridiculous. We've got to do this. We've got to find some common ground here. So, what's on your mind today?
The weather.
Yeah,
I decided to move out to the beach, and
I think that's a grand idea.
I think I'm going to relocate.
That's very nice. And I
Because,
do, you look very debonair with those glasses on, my
thank you,
dear.
because even in Southern California, it's like 50 degrees, which is ain't bad. I'm not complaining because I know that when I have a show with you in South Carolina and New York and New Jersey, you guys are freezing your whatchamacallits off.
We are, and that's fine. It's one of those the colds that come in, I'll tell you. But it was interesting. Our last Friday's program, we were anticipating and we were prepping for a big storm to come in. We didn't realize how big the doggone storm was going to be. Ended up, we got 6.5 inches, almost 7 inches of snow here, which very unusual for Greenville, South Carolina. And we're expecting right now, in fact, I'm looking out the office window here. We're expecting some additional snow flurries, maybe another inch to come in. The bad thing about this is that when you don't have, pardon me, this is Gracie.
Yeah.
Gracie, everything okay? That's my girl.
Yeah.
When we get this kind of snow, we also get a lot of ice storms, and we were very fortunate. We have two generators that back each other up. Unfortunately, we didn't lose power, but a lot of people up the coast, in fact, did. In fact, Charleston, of all things, is all expecting a major ice storm, which will take the power down, unfortunately. But today, we got hit again with temperatures not above 32 degrees all day today, gloomy, dark, and what have you. But you know what? I'm a California girl, but I do like the change in weather. I do like, and I am wearing my thermals. Yes, I am. And that's why you can see the black turtleneck on me. I'm staying nice and warm, nice and warm. But
Well, I
yeah,
like the changing the
there goes
weather for-
climate. There goes climate warming, huh?
No, it's climate change.
Oh, I see.
It's the weather. The
I
weather
see.
is getting all screwed up. Like you say, it's unheard of weather in South Carolina.
Very interesting weather. I think the last time they had weather like this was about 10, 15 years ago. So yeah, it is unusual. So at any
And
rate, I will give you that much.
I think the unusual weather is going to be more constant.
Well, it could be. I have to tell you, we've got some real interesting problems coming, I think, to the United States. Did you get a chance to catch any part of the 2-hour marathon with President Biden?
Not much.
I tried to watch part of it, but and I wanted to do it because as a news reporter and the mentality of being a news reporter, I wanted to be able to hear it directly from the president. But I was just a bit stunned at presentation. I was stunned. I think the one thing that jaw dropped me was when he talked about Russia, and it was basically okay to go into the Ukraine. Now I know they're walking that back, but I was very upset and not happy with the fact that Biden doesn't seem to be standing firm, not firm against the Russians, not firm against the Chinese. And this is just an invitation for people who, entities that are not friends of the United States, to take advantage of, at this point right now, even though he stood there for 2 hours, he looked weak. He looked weak to me. So, and I hate to say that, because I must say that even though I did not vote for him, I do vote for wanting this president, all presidents, to succeed, because it impacts every single one of us. And I do think that right now that there's a lot of concern. I know that his approval rating has gone down to 33%.
I thought
And
it was
the
43%.
and now this, and the stock market at this point right now, in fact, let me take a quick look and see where the stock market has been. The NASDAQ, which is the growth funds, the Teslas, the Apples, the Amazons, and the Microsofts, in correction territory, over 11% since the first of the year. Lordy. The market's going to close in about 47 minutes, and the Dow's down 439 points.
Yeah.
The NASDAQ is down 350 points, which is another 2.5% down. And the S&P is down 82 points, which is about almost 2% down. And the pundits are all talking about the concern that they have, not only with the Fed as to what about interest rate hikes, but more importantly, how to tame the situation with inflation. And I guess I was kind of scratching my head trying to figure out, after a 2-hour marathon session with talking with reporters, there wasn't anything about inflation. There wasn't anything about crime. There's now recently, just 2 days ago, a young UCLA grad in your neck of the woods, in fact, where I used to work at Cap Cities, Channel 13, was stabbed by a homeless man. Now, fortunately, they found this guy, and yet you just, the crime just keeps going on, is more and more rampant, and what have you. Sorry to be talking about a serious topic, as Max, the little boy cat, is playing around here. What are your concerns about crime, and have you seen an increase? Any, I hope not, any situation where you live now?
Not well, some. I mean, I live in the Sherman Oaks area of Southern California, Los
And
Angeles.
that's north of Los Angeles.
That's
You know,
that's no, it's in Los Angeles, but it's
okay,
Los Angeles. It's San Fernando Valley, which actually
right,
should be a city of its own.
right,
In fact, because there's it's over the hills for people who don't know. The other side,
right.
I go over the Pass Road, and I'm in
Mhm.
Beverly Hills.
That's right.
Or I go down the freeway south, I get into Hollywood. So I'm
Now,
only about 4 or 5
are you
miles.
are you impacted by the DA Gascon that's apparently gone fairly soft on crime,
Well,
according to even the
I
sheriff's department?
think there has to be a balance. You know, there
Mhm.
can't be one overall rule. I believe in the fact that that you shouldn't hold someone in jail without bail that hasn't
Mhm.
been convicted, as long as it's a nonviolent crime. But you have to have be sure that they come in when their trial is when their trial is being held, not that they disappear, that there's some sort of watch on them. But I don't think that because someone is poor, they should remain in jail because they don't have the bail. Whereas
No,
if
I
someone is
agree with
rich,
that, but I think my concern at this point right now is that I don't really want to give a green light to criminals who want to go back out and be a menace to innocents, to people in society that that don't need to have crime inflicted upon them. I mean, this UCLA. First off, I don't understand, because I used to also be in private security. Do not understand why they didn't have a panic button, and why she was there all alone. Um, it
well,
doesn't
well,
make any sense to me.
there were two different things that happened,
Mhm.
which I don't know if you're mixing up or not, because there's a guy who there was I don't know if she was a UCLA student. I know she was 24, that was working in a store. I think it was either Brentwood or in a good neighborhood, and the guy came in and stabbed her.
Yeah,
I
that's
I
what
don't
I'm
know if he
talking
was
about.
homeless, but there was another thing about a 70-year-old nurse
Yes.
that was waiting at a bus stop.
Yeah.
I guess to go home or go to work, that
Yeah,
another homeless man hit her on the head with something and she was killed.
yeah, yeah.
But I think that there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance. If you're on bail, or you're not on bail, but if they let you out waiting for a trial and you
Mhm.
repeat an offense, then you should be kept in jail.
I have to agree, and I don't understand this no cash bail, especially, for example, up in New York. My husband and I were planning on vacationing up in New York this summertime. There's no way we're going to go up there. I'm not going to take a chance if uh, that if the criminals feel as though it's okay to go ahead and attack normal everyday people. I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable. And I really don't care what their situation is. Behave, stop, do not be doing what you're doing. So, Malcolm, what in the world are you doing now? I'm
I'm
seeing your
I'm
nose
getting
hair.
my CAD, but the thing is, people can't see me. You're alone on the screen.
Okay.
I because I'm able to control whose picture is up there, and I like your picture
Oh,
much better than mine.
very good. Very good. So at any rate,
As I say,
I am concerned, and I'm very concerned about, and I think a lot of people are concerned about the path of the country right now. I think we're going to war, and I think as soon
I'm
as
I'm con-
Russia
I'm concerned.
invades Ukraine, and I have to tell you, the Ukrainian president was all over President Biden saying, "What in the devil are you doing?" And of course, then Jen Psaki, who maybe is the vice president, who knows at this point right now, is walking back this whole situation with Russia being on the border, ready to pounce on Ukraine, and saying, "Oh no, no, that's not actually going to happen." When in fact, the president said minor incursion. Well, maybe a minor incursion.
Well, he walked back on that. I think what he meant to say is that if a mistake happens and there's uh, there's an incident, this is not going to bring to a full-blown war. Of course, if the troops come and it's a major incursion, uh, a major invasion, then we're all we're going to defend them. But you say you're afraid. I'm afraid of everything. I don't know if it's an age. I'm afraid of the virus. I'm afraid of the idiots, excuse me, who are not taking the vaccine because they believe that the vaccine is bad and the government is trying to control them. And then I'm afraid that because of that, the virus has a chance to mutate, and the variants will be so great that it'll be even if you're vaccinated, you can get the vaccine, you can get a bad case, a bad virus, and die. I'm afraid of the crazy guy that's in North Korea that has nuclear weapons.
Yep.
I'm afraid of the crazy guy in Russia, Putin, who wants to show that he's macho and show his you
Do you
know
realize do you realize that when day one, when President Biden took office and he decided to cut the Keystone Pipeline, essentially cutting off our energy independence, do you realize where we're getting the bulk of our oil now? Answer: Russia. Back in 1987, we were importing about 17 million gallons of oil. You know what it's up to now? Answer: 218,000 million gallons. And actually, I think it's on a per day basis. And where are we getting it? We're getting it from Russia. So I guess I'm just what part of economics does the Biden administration not understand? Why would you cut off your energy independence and then go ahead and pay money to buy the same oil that we can get from our country from basically an enemy?
Well,
Russia's not a friend.
that's good because now Putin has a reason not to attack because he loses too much money.
I don't think so. I
It,
don't think so.
it's
He's pumping it into, since the Nord Stream was approved by President Biden.
no,
He's
no.
pumping it into Germany. He's pumping it into the rest of Europe.
Yeah, but Germany and all the other countries are part of NATO, and NATO is
Mhm.
the one that's going to provide the sanctions if they invade Ukraine. So
Yeah,
it
I
doesn't
tell
it
you.
doesn't pay for him to do it. I mean, on a
I gotta
financial
tell you.
basis, but he might be out of his mind. But these are some of the things which concern me. And I read the paper
Yeah.
and I read, the various different countries and what they're doing, and
Mhm.
the Venezuela type of thing, where The dictators are taking over the election, and in the U.S. where they're saying that the individual states can negate the election results.
Well, I also did find it interesting at the press conference that President Biden brought into question election integrity for 2022. And yet what I find also interesting is that the John E. Lewis voter bill that was just defeated 2 days ago in the Senate, that in fact, he, being President Biden, said that we had the largest voter turnout in 2020. So I guess once again, I'm asking, where are the hordes of people that have been denied the vote? Where are they, Malcolm? I don't understand this. And by his own admission, President Biden is saying we had the largest voter turnout in 2020.
2020. Well, that's what's
so then why do we need to have a new, and like I said, we need identification. If we wanted to go into a restaurant in New York City, for example, I needed to show my COVID card, which I have. I've been vaccinated plus booster, and I need to have ID, and I need to have a photo ID. And yet to vote, you don't need to have a photo ID if they get this John E. Lewis voting bill through, which at this point right now they haven't. I'm scratching my head going, why?
Well,
doesn't make any sense.
We've been through that before. What we're talking about is a changing of the laws from 2020, which makes it hard, which disqualifies a lot of people from.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, they did. They
it doesn't.
In Texas, they sent out thousands of letters saying, if you don't come, and re-register and show this sort of identification, we're going to take you off the ballot. We're going to take you.
Texas basically told everybody that if you haven't voted in the last election, you need to go back and re-register. Right. That's pretty simple stuff.
Right.
It used to be that way in California, that if you didn't vote in a couple of elections, you were taken off the voter rolls. And I remember having to re-register in California. Of course, that was time gone by.
But they're saying they're disqualifying people who did mail-in ballots. And anyway,
once again, I want, if there was a situation where voters were being barred from voting, I would like to be able to see them assemble maybe on the Capitol steps or maybe on the Supreme Court steps. I'd like to see some evidence of this.
The Supreme Court is a joke.
Well, you know what I'm saying. I want to see real life people and not just stories about these people. And it's crazy. Why are you? Let me ask you a question. Are you for or against having voter ID? Should you show some form of identification?
Yeah, it depends It depends on what you need. And it depends on how easy it is to go to the nearest place to register. I mean, I don't know if I would get into a car and drive 50 miles so I could register. I think there has to be a way of people registering, especially in this modern day of times. We're all living over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see why people cannot go with everything in our lives are registered.
Right. So what is the problem with producing some sort of identification, verifying the fact that I'm Deborah Manning or you're Malcolm Berman?
Right, but there should be a way of doing it, by the way, over the internet, and that
there's plenty of ways. There's plenty of ways. And I say, but I mean, accusing the Republicans at this point of trying to do voter suppression is just, it's ridiculous and it's divisive. And I think the problem that I had with President Biden's news conference was, once again, he was yelling at people and screaming at people and screaming at news reporters. And once again, all of the questions were pre-planned questions. He prepped for 4 or 5 days. God bless him. And what's interesting is a lot of people say he's old and decrepit and all this. No, I think this is very intentional. I think he knows exactly what he wants, and he's getting exactly what he wants at this point right now.
But actually, if you saw the press conference, he's also called reporters that he knows that aren't for him. They were asking sort of like dumb questions.
Well, I know that all the questions were sent through the White House staff. There were no.
No, there are a few of them. At the end of the conference, he added many more questions, which he I forget who the reporter was from Fox, but they sort of asked him a question. If people think
Peter Ducey from Fox got one question, and then there was a female reporter that was there from Fox that he basically dressed down. And I did not appreciate the way he dressed down a female reporter.
Well, truthfully, I'm not necessarily a Biden fan. I don't like his demeanor. I don't like his presentation. I think he should be much more forceful in the things that he wants to do. I think the senator, who's the senator from Illinois, Amy
Klobuchar.
Klobuchar. She was when she was on the Senate floor, and she was saying how when the Republicans wanted to do a temporary do away with the filibuster, they were able to do it, and that it's not. I think it was like 100 and something times, 160 times that they were able to do away with the filibuster to get their policy. So what I think is also very interesting is the situation with Joe Manchin. Let's shift gears just a little bit. They're talking about that Biden may not run in for the presidency in 2024. You know who I might possibly support, and I would love to be able to see him run, would be Joe Manchin. I would like to see Joe Manchin run. I'm a great proponent. You have got to have two sides of the coin, two sides of the stories, whether you call them Republicans or Democrats or liberals or conservatives. That's where we meet and get the best and the brightest solutions, but solutions. I think if Joe Manchin made any sense, he doesn't make any sense because half of the people in West Virginia are on some sort of government help. If we had the Build Back Better plan, it would help his people. In the meantime,
well, then why isn't he supporting it? He's not supporting it because his constituents don't want it.
No, because he makes over $400,000 from fossil fuel from a coal company, which is he owns part of it. He lives on a yacht and he drives a Maserati. Now I don't know if he has touched.
I'd love to live on a yacht and a Maserati.
So would
all I have is a little tiny 1948 bungalow and an old Honda Element. But you know what? I'm happy.
You should become a politician.
Oh, maybe I will. Maybe I will.
And but I don't see why the Democratic Party or the groups that represent the poor folks are instead of shouting that they're making it harder to register, who right now are in full force registering them, making sure that their registration, that they're for election, their application is being processed, and they're going over to them, and you need a ground force to do that.
That's great. And that's what the Republicans need to do. And it's been funny because
both parties.
Absolutely. You've got to have that person to person talking to one another. And I think doing the registration is critical. And that's the way that Glenn Youngkin managed to overturn and become governor of Virginia. In fact, interestingly enough, I know one of the individuals who helped do the ground game, it's very labor intensive. It's literally knocking on people's door and pointing out what the issues are. And when people listen to what the issues are, it's really interesting. They go, wait a minute, you're right. I don't want to be taught in schools that white people are the oppressors and the minorities are the oppressed. I don't want that to be taught in school. I want opportunity to be presented.
No, yeah, but you're getting again the right wing thing.
Please, it is not the right wing thing.
It's a fact that there was prejudice in the U.S. That there was the Jim Crow.
Absolutely, and you know where the Jim Crow came from? I hate to tell you, you know where the Jim Crow came from?
Dixie Democrats.
Yeah.
It was called the Dixiecrats, but from down south.
Yeah.
Having a label Republican and Democrat in this day and age is not the same as having a Republican and Democrat in the 30s. It was not the same as a Republican or Democrat, in Lincoln's time. Everybody said, well, Lincoln was a Republican. Yeah, but it was a different type of Republican.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't for the same thing. In fact,
Very, very true.
and I love, oh, we're strict constructionists of the Constitution. Sure, that means women can't vote. Only white property men can vote, which I'm in agreement with. I think, well, I told you, I believe in a benevolent dictatorship.
Oh,
I think if, or if, I think with Plato, if I forget what it is now. If kings can't become philosophers, philosophers should become kings. Most people don't want to make decisions. They just want a good life, but they don't want to do any of the work involved in it.
no, I certainly understand that. But the problem that I have basically with a lot of the politicians that we're putting up with right now, they seem to be totally out of touch with normal everyday Americans. We went to a couple of stores and we go to a discount bakery, a day old bakery, because that saves us some money. We're on a fixed income. And the shelves were bare, empty. There was no bread to be able to buy. I'm going to start baking bread again, which is fine, no big deal. We went into a large supermarket, same situation. We went into a very fancy dancy supermarket, same situation, empty shelves.
And why do you feel that's happening?
Why do I think it's happening? Because unfortunately, you have just a gazelle of government red tape and bureaucratic baloney that is completely hanging up. It starts first with energy, with the gasoline prices. It also starts with the ridiculous laws that California has in effect, saying that certain truckers can and cannot unload trucks and the ships from the Long Beach or the LA ports. You have that whole situation here. I think my concern is we've got to get back. Now, I support many of the climate change types of things. I want to reuse things, et cetera, but I want to ease into it. I don't want to go ahead and turn the lights off just to say, well, we're now completely carbon independent and carbon free. I want to ease our way into it. And you do it with carrot and sticks. You do it by deregulating. You do it by giving tax credits. That's how it all works. But to summarily cut off our energy independence, Malcolm, that's craziness. It's crazy.
Well, that's something. So whoever has the power makes the rules. The problem is, it's like with the old, unions at the beginning, the turn of the last century in the 1900s. It was the big companies, the major players. They were making all the rules, and they were running sweatshops. I mean, literally, they weren't for the workers. Then when the unions started, and the unions became powerful, it reversed. The unions. A lot of the unions took advantage of the manufacturers.
Yep.
There has to be a balance. It's the same way as when Trump came into power, president. He did away through executive decisions to do away with a lot of the rules that the companies couldn't do, the pollution rules, and the companies went hog wild, and they started doing things that were extremely opposite of what was good for the climate and what was good for the country, because they could do it. They didn't have the rules. They didn't have the regulations.
And that's why I say the yin and the yang, the Democrats and the Republicans need to come to some compromise. And you don't, Malcolm, come to compromise when the Democrats at this point right now are barring in the House Republicans from discussing any of the bills that they want to put. Nancy Pelosi is barring Republicans from participating in lawmaking. This is craziness.
Excuse me.
Wake up.
Are we talking about the Senate and the filibuster?
I'm talking about the House with Nancy Pelosi barring people from participating, Republicans specifically. I'm also talking about Chuck Schumer. They're trying to get the voting bill passed again, and they're going to try and rework it. Nancy Pelosi is talking about the Build Back Better. They're going to go ahead and break it apart. But once again, they're not allowing participation by the Republicans. I hate to remind President Biden that he does not have a majority. He does not have a mandate. There were a lot of people that voted for the other side, and they need to acknowledge that. They cannot simply go ahead and turn their backs on it. And you know what? It doesn't do much by calling people racist and bigots, and it doesn't do much to that. And I have to thank Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema for basically saying, no, we are going to go back and we are going to rewrite these rules. We're going to start from the beginning on the spending bills. We're going to start again in terms of voting rights, but not continue the way it's going.
Do you think they should block the discussion or them taking a vote on the floor because with the filibuster and do away with the filibuster as the Republicans did when they wanted their bills going through, when they wanted to elect a new or appoint a new Supreme Court justice, where they didn't, they said, okay, let's do away with the filibuster. And where they blocked Obama from appointing the Supreme Court justice on his, because he's going for his last term. He can't do that. That's not right. But yet, a month before Trump would go out, they nominated the new Supreme Court justice.
Mhm.
And,
Well,
and
I must say that I am relieved. I am relieved that Merrick Garland did not make it onto the Supreme Court, simply based on the fact that his position as an Attorney General of the United States has him taking the bidding of the School Board Association and labeling parents as terrorists. Once again, this divisiveness has got to stop. We have got to stop it.
Well, we've been over that. What is a terrorist? A terrorist is somebody through violent means wants to overthrow something.
Mhm.
And a lot of the parents, not all the parents want to, but they have threatened school board people. I know you say you can't do, words are powerful. And when you threaten somebody with physical harm, there should be, it's not whether, well, they didn't do it. Okay, when they did it and they killed somebody, okay, now you can put them in jail. But if you physically threaten or you talk with a group of people to overthrow something, that's not allowed in this country.
We're mincing words, because the bottom line is that you cannot allow the government to interfere with the parents' right to be able to make sure that their child is being is educated a certain way. Now, once again, I do agree with the fact that I'd like to be able to see the government give X number of dollars to parents to be able to have them choose exactly where they want their children to go to school. And that's especially with inner city schools, for heaven's sakes, because they're getting short shrift. They're getting short shrift with the crime situation. And I just donated, which reminds me, on Facebook, I have a posting for a reverend that is on the rooftop in Chicago. You can donate to him because he's trying to put together a building to be able to open up to kids, at-risk kids in Chicago, to be able to, hey, my husband's saying,
I want to get Fisher on the show.
I know you're trying to get Fish on the show. You don't want him on the show.
I want it,
He is rabid, absolutely rabid about Biden.
Do you know what's unfair?
What's that?
What's unfair is that there's a rich and poor. The poor people who were born with money, and then there are people who were born, family was without money. That's unfair. Life is not fair. It's not fair.
What isn't?
It's not fair that people are born. Some people are born, they're good looking. Some people are born who are ugly. Some people who are born have brains. Some people don't have brains, are stupid. And I think what we have to do is take a look at democracy in general. Number one, there has to be a lot of right now. Our Senate, our Congress is at a standstill. A lot of the reason why, there are a lot of old men there, and I'm part of the old man syndrome. It's not that I'm young and want a revolution, but you take a look at Congress. It looks like there was a snowstorm. It's all the white-haired people, men and women.
It's always been that way.
They're out of touch. I know when I speak to my son's friends and they're in their 20s, they live in a whole different world than I live in. And the Congress are not really aware of that type of world. Anyway, I agree. We have to continue this battle or this Congress.
It's not a battle. You know what? We find a lot in common. We truly do. I think you're as concerned as I am about the drift of America. I'm worried about the crime. I'm worried about the inflation situation. I am concerned about the fact that we have lawmakers, for the most part, that seem to be deaf and dumb about the situation with middle class. I want the middle class to expand. I want the lower classes to be able to get opportunities the way America has always had a history of being a place of opportunity. And yet it seems to be more and more of those opportunities seem to be shutting down. And like I say, I do wish that President Biden would get out and stop screaming and yelling at people. And this whispering has got to stop. I can't stand the whispering anymore.
What I wish he would do is become more forceful and not really worry about whether people like him or not, but do things which he thinks are good. But
I think that's what he's doing.
Our commonality is not method. Our commonality is that we are after the same goal.
Yes.
And if we could find a middle of the road to get to that goal, or even both of us give in a little and meet someplace in the middle of the road. Of course, our goals are the same. Do something and see whether that works. But anyway, I know what works is we have to leave.
Oh, and I have really enjoyed the beach scene behind you. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I think I'll stay here until summer comes.
Very nice. And here I am sitting in my office, but I do have one thing that you don't have. I've got my 6 cats around me, and they are having a doggone good time.
Okay. Where are your hens?
Oh, listen, I got to tell you, we're keeping the heater on. Not letting those hens. I know they've got their fluffy fur and they've got their coats, but no way, we're keeping the heater on, so it's a 45-degree in that hen house.
They don't have fur; they have feathers.
They're feathers, yes. They've got their wonderful jackets on. So
They're gonna lay hard-boiled eggs. Under that lousy joke, I'll see you next week.
all right, see you next week, my dear. Bye bye.